The clock struck 7 as we gathered around the dinner table, the air thick with unspoken secrets. Dad's eyes flickered to mine before he dropped the bombshell. "You'll understand when you meet her." My heart raced, the room spinning as my mind raced through the implications. Just 5 days later, I stood at the entrance of a lavish restaurant, the scent of betrayal heavy in the air, realizing the woman he had been hiding wasn't just his lover, but my own flesh and blood. My world shattered in that instant, splintering into pieces I couldn't comprehend. My name is Sienna. This is the moment I lost my family. The restaurant's interior was a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the tables, but all I felt was cold. I had arrived early, hoping to gather my thoughts, but with every ticking second, my heart thudded louder against my ribs, a steady reminder of the impending confrontation. I couldn't shake the image of my father's face as he had made that shocking declaration at dinner. The way he looked, so calm, so sure, made it feel like a betrayal of the most profound kind. How could he have kept this from me? When Laura and Isaac walked through the door, I forced a smile, but I could see the worry etched on my mother's face. She could sense my tension, but I wasn't ready to unravel in front of them. Isaac's eyes lit up when he spotted me, oblivious to the weight that hung in the air. He bounded over, eager as ever, asking me if I was excited for dinner. The innocence in his voice tugged at my heart. He didn't know what was coming. I looked down at my hands, fidgeting with the silver bracelet that had been a gift from Laura. It felt like a reminder of the person I used to be, a girl who thought her family was invincible. As we settled at our table, I could feel the electricity crackling beneath our surface conversation. Laura tried her best to keep things light, chatting about the restaurant's famous dishes and asking Isaac about school. But I could barely focus on the words. My mind was a desperate fog of questions. Who was this woman? How had my father met her? And why did he think I would understand anything when I met her? The thought twisted my stomach into knots. Michael arrived moments later, his demeanor calm as he joined us. The tension in the air thickened as he took his seat, a placid smile on his face that felt utterly at odds with my turmoil. I was desperate to yell, to confront him about the truth that loomed over us like a dark cloud, but I knew I had to hold it in. For Isaac's sake, I had to maintain some semblance of normalcy. But with every passing moment, the urge to lash out became harder to suppress. The server approached with a tray of appetizers, and as they set down the plates, I could see Michael's gaze drifting towards the door, as if he was waiting for someone. The sight made my heart race even faster. I couldn't help but wonder if she was just outside, preparing to step into my life and shatter it completely. My stomach churned at the idea, each bite of the bruschetta tasting like cardboard in my mouth. It was Isaac who broke the silence, asking Michael about his work. It was as if they were unaware of the storm brewing beneath our surface, but I felt desperate, like I was drowning in a sea of unspoken words. After a few moments, Laura cleared her throat, glancing between Michael and me. "So, Sienna, how have you been? School going well?" Her attempt to redirect the conversation was sweet, but I could tell she sensed the tension. I nodded, forcing a smile, but I was barely aware of what I was saying. My thoughts were too busy racing ahead, imagining the moment this mystery woman would walk through the door. The minutes dragged on, and I fought to keep my composure. Laura filled the space with small talk, asking Isaac about his latest soccer match, while Michael occasionally chimed in with half-hearted enthusiasm. All the while, I could feel the weight of my father's secret pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. Just when I thought I might suffocate under the strain of our conversations, the door swung open. In that instant, my heart dropped as a woman walked in, her presence commanding the room. She was strikingly beautiful, with long, dark hair and an air of disgusted confidence that made my skin crawl. As she scanned the room, her gaze landed on our table, and I felt as if the surprised world had come to a standstill. I could hardly process the way Michael's expression shifted, a hint of something almost sad in his eyes. It was a look I had never seen directed at anyone but my mother. Time resumed its course, and I watched as she approached our table, each step making my heart race faster. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, and I was struck by a thought that clawed at my insides. This was the woman who had stolen my father from me. I wanted to scream, to demand explanations, but I felt paralyzed. The way she smiled at us was disarming, as if she had every right to be here. "Hi, everyone," she said brightly, and I could feel my heart clench at the normalcy of her greeting. Michael stood to embrace her, pulling her close as if she were the missing piece he had been searching for. I felt disgusted bile rise in my throat as I forced myself to look away, not wanting to witness this betrayal any longer. "Sienna, this is Clara," Michael said, his voice tinged with something I couldn't identify. "You'll understand now that we've finally met." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, and I could feel my world desperate collapse further in on itself. Clara smiled at me, and in that moment, I knew that my life would never be the same. The betrayal I had felt just days prior was nothing compared to the reality of the woman standing before me, a tangible representation of everything I had lost. It was no longer just a secret. It was a living, breathing person who had shattered the fragile tapestry of my family. I could feel the sad tears welling in my eyes, but I blinked them away, unwilling to give in to the pain that threatened to consume me. Now I was in the ring, and I had a battle to fight. As I stood there, the weight of Michael's words pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. The woman in front of me, with her poised demeanor and soft smile, seemed so out of place in the chaos swirling within my heart. My thoughts raced as I tried to process what this revelation meant. I glanced over at Laura, whose face was a mask of uncertainty, and then at Isaac, who seemed blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him. He was still at the table, shoveling mashed potatoes onto his plate, oblivious to the fact that our family was on the brink of unraveling. "Who is she?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air, thick with tension, and I could feel the eyes of my family turn toward this newcomer. I needed answers, and I needed them now. But the woman merely smiled, her eyes reflecting a compassion I found disgusted hard to accept in that moment. "Her name is Grace," Michael interjected, his voice steady but laced with an undertone of defensiveness. "She's someone I've known for a long time, longer than you can imagine." The way he said it made my disgusted insides churn. Long enough to keep secrets? Long enough to betray the family he had always told us we were supposed to cherish above all else? Longer than I can imagine? I shot back, anger spilling over. What does that even mean? How could you keep something like this from us? I gestured wildly, my heart racing as the pieces of the puzzle that was my family's history began to feel painfully inadequate. I wanted to scream, to shake him until he understood the gravity of what he had done. But instead, I found myself trembling in confusion. Laura shifted uncomfortably in her chair, glancing between Michael and me as if searching for a safe route through the chaos. "Ciela, sweetie," she began, her voice soft yet firm, "maybe we should take a moment to breathe. This is all very sudden." It was an attempt to soothe, but it felt like a sarcastic band-aid on a gaping wound. I didn't want to breathe. I wanted to dive into this tangled mess of emotions and find the truth, even if it hurt. But Michael shook his head, his brow furrowed. "No, Laura, this is a conversation we need to have now. Sienna deserves to know the truth." I felt a flicker of gratitude toward him for saying that, but it was quickly overshadowed by the gnawing resentment that had taken root in my heart. Did he really think he could just unveil this new chapter in our lives and expect me to accept it with open arms? Why now? I angrily demanded, my voice rising slightly. Why did you feel the need to bring her to dinner? You could have told us before. The betrayal felt like a festering wound, and I couldn't help but lash out. Did you even think about how this would affect us? What about me? What about Isaac? I motioned to my brother, who had finally looked up from his plate, confusion etched on his innocent face. "It's complicated, Sienna," Michael replied, his tone now tinged with frustration. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" I scoffed internally at the notion. How could hiding this monumental secret ever be seen as protection? The reality was that he had constructed a wall of deception that now stood between us. And I felt the anger bubbling up like a dormant volcano, threatening to erupt. Protecting me from what? The truth? I challenged, narrowing my eyes at him. You think I'm better off not knowing who Grace is or what she means to you? My heart raced with every word, and I could see the cracks in my father's carefully composed facade beginning to show. Grace is part of my past, Sienna, Michael finally admitted, his voice heavy with the weight of history. A part I thought was behind me until recently. I didn't know how to introduce her without uprooting everything. Uprooting everything? You've already done that. I spat, frustration mingling with hurt. Do you even understand what this feels like? I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore. The silence in the room was palpable, and I could see Isaac's eyes darting back and forth. Sensing the tension that had overtaken our dinner table, my heart broke a little more for him. He was just a kid, caught in the crossfire of our family's unraveling. "Sienna, please," he said, his voice nervous and hesitant. "It's just dinner. Can we talk about this later?" I shot him a look that desperate screamed my desperation for understanding. "No, Isaac, we can't just pretend everything is fine anymore." I turned back to face Michael, willing him to comprehend the depth of my pain. "You've shattered our family's foundation, and now we have to rebuild it with someone I don't even know." Laura finally intervened, her voice shaky but resolute. "Michael, Sienna deserves honesty. We all do." Her eyes flickered to Grace, who had remained silently observing the turmoil unfold before her. It was as if she sensed the storm raging around her and chose not to interfere. But I couldn't help but angry her presence. She had become the focal point of our family's dysfunction, and here I was, standing on the precipice of what felt like utter betrayal. Fine, I relented, my voice shaking with emotion. Let's hear what she has to say. This was my chance to confront the new reality, to demand answers from the woman who had come to symbolize the fracture in my family. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever revelation awaited me. It was time to face this new chapter, even if it meant fearing open old wounds I was not sure I was ready to confront. With bated breath, I turned to Grace, ready to listen to the story that had already begun to rewrite the narrative of my family's life. If you want to continue following Sienna's journey through heartbreak and discovery, please consider subscribing for more updates. The room felt heavy with unspoken words as I focused on my father's face, searching for any hint of sincerity in his expression. Michael's revelation had shattered the fragile stability I once took for granted, leaving me reeling with confusion. Who is she? I finally managed to ask, my voice trembling, the weight of the question pressing heavily on my chest. It was no longer just about curiosity. It was about the foundation of trust that seemed to be crumbling beneath my feet. My mother, Laura, instinctively leaned closer to my father, her eyes darting between us like a pendulum, caught in a desperate attempt to maintain the facade of normalcy. "I can't reveal everything just yet," Michael said, his tone more evasive than reassuring. "But you will meet her soon, and then it will all make sense." Each word felt like a riddle, deepening my anxiety rather than alleviating it. I could sense Isaac's confusion from across the table, his innocent days flitting between my parents and me, as if trying to decipher the silent tension swirling around us. It broke my heart to see him caught in this chaotic moment, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. "Dad, you can't just drop something like this and expect us to be okay with it," I challenged him, my frustration boiling over. "This is about more than just you. We deserve to know what's going on." My mother's eyes widened, and I could see her resolve waning as she struggled to uphold the family dynamic we had always relied on. I had spent years trying to shield Isaac from the complexities of adult relationships, but here we were, unraveling at the seams right in front of him. "I know, Sienna," Michael replied, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "This is hard for all of us. It's just complicated." Complicated? How could he reduce everything to that single word? My mind raced through a labyrinth of thoughts, replaying the moments leading up to this dinner, the laughter that had filled our home just hours ago. It felt like a cruel joke, and I was the punchline. I wanted to scream, to demand he explain himself, but a part of me hesitated, unsure if I truly wanted to know the depths of his betrayal. Laura interjected, her voice trembling slightly. "What if we take a moment and breathe? We can't let this dinner descend into chaos." She was trying, bless her heart, but the damage was already done. The air was thick with a tension I couldn't ignore. I could see her desperation to hold our family together, to quell the rising tide of emotions threatening to drown us all. I admired her for that, but it made my anger feel even more potent. "Breathe?" I echoed incredulously. How can I breathe when the ground beneath me is crumbling? This isn't just about dinner etiquette anymore, Mom. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, the noise sharp in the charged atmosphere. I need to know what's going on. If there's someone else in our lives, I deserve to know who she is. My heart raced, fear battling against a relentless tide of anger. Isaac looked up at me with wide eyes, confusion evident on his young face. "Who are we talking about?" he asked, his voice small, and it struck me that I was dragging him into a battle I wasn't fully prepared to fight. I shot a glance at my father, looking for any semblance of a response, but he simply stared back, his expression inscrutable. "Isaac, it's okay. It's just family stuff," I replied, wanting to protect him, even as the truth felt like a jagged rock in my throat. "But I promise I'll explain everything later." He nodded, but I could see the worry etched on his brow. I hated that my father's decisions had forced this reality upon him. The weight of that realization pressed heavily on my shoulders. "Maybe we should take a break," Laura suggested, her voice trembling. "We can all use some air." The suggestion struck me as feeble, but I didn't argue. We needed to recalibrate, to gather our thoughts, but I also knew it would never truly be the same. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air hit me like a splash of cold water, awakening my senses. I leaned against the porch railing, inhaling deeply, trying to clear my mind. My heart raced as I replayed Michael's words over and over in my head. Who was this mysterious woman? Why had he kept her a secret? I felt a fire igniting within me, a relentless need for answers that could no longer be ignored. Just then, Isaac stepped outside, his small frame silhouetted against the dim light from the house. "Sienna?" he called softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you okay?" His concern was genuine, and it tugged at my heartstrings. I didn't want to project my chaos onto him, but it was desperate to contain. "I will be, Izzy," I said, forcing a smile. "Just a lot to think about." He came closer, his youthful presence a balm against my frayed nerves. I wanted to shield him from the complexities of adulthood, but I couldn't deny that we were both living in a narrative that was no longer straightforward. "Do you think Dad will tell us the truth?" Isaac asked, his hopeful innocence shining through, and I found myself at a crossroads. I could either shield him from the truth or prepare him for the reality of our family situation. "I don't know, buddy," I replied honestly, my sad heart aching for him. "But we have to be confident, ready for whatever comes next." As I looked into his eyes, I realized that protecting him meant not just shielding him from pain, but also helping him navigate through it. Whatever this new revelation held, we would face it together. With that thought in mind, I, confident, resolved to uncover the truth. No more hiding, no more evasions. I would, hopeful, forge a path for both of us to walk, even if it was fraught with uncertainty. It was time to confront the darkness that loomed over our family and, hopeful, find a way to piece together the shattered fragments of our lives. As the days unfolded after that fateful dinner, an unsettling weight settled in my chest. I could hardly focus on school or even find solace in my usual routines. The familiar sounds of laughter and conversation at home had transformed into an eerie silence, punctuated only by my mother's attempts to maintain normalcy. The image of my father, calm and collected, declaring that I would understand once I met her, haunted me. Who was she? What part of our family's history had been kept from me, buried so deep it had festered into this moment of revelation? I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire life had been a carefully curated illusion, with my parents as the skilled puppeteers pulling the strings. Isaac, oblivious to the turmoil swirling around us, remained a hopeful, bright spot amidst the chaos. His laughter and innocent questions often broke through the heaviness that hung in our home, but I couldn't completely immerse myself in his world. I caught glimpses of the worry etched into Laura's face, her efforts to keep the peace more transparent than ever. I wanted to reach out to her, to ask if she too felt the weight of our father's words, but the trust that had once woven us together felt frayed. Instead, I buried my feelings deeper, creating an emotional chasm between us that I feared might never close. One evening, Laura sat me down in the living room, her eyes searching mine for understanding. I could see the determination behind her gentle facade, as if she was preparing for a difficult conversation. "Sienna," she began, her voice soft yet steady, "I know things have been rough since dinner. Your father, he can be cryptic, but he loves you and he never wanted to hurt you." Her words felt like a lifebuoy thrown into stormy seas, but I was not ready to grasp it. "Love? This is love?" I shot back, my voice tinged with bitterness. "How can he love me if he kept this secret? If he's brought someone else into our lives without my knowledge?" The swell of emotions pushed against my chest, each word laced with the hurt I was trying to suppress. Laura's expression faltered, her brows furrowing as if she were searching for the right words. "I think he thought he was protecting you," she finally said, the sincerity in her voice tempered by uncertainty. "There are aspects of our lives that can be complex, Sienna. Sometimes it's easier to keep things hidden rather than face the fallout." Her words struck a chord. I couldn't help but wonder what else lay mysterious beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect family. Days turned into weeks, and the conversation with my mother lingered in my mind, an unresolved tension growing as I battled the thoughts of who this mysterious woman was and what she meant for my family. I became desperate with the idea of uncovering the truth. I needed to meet her, not just to put a face to the name, but to demand answers. I had read countless stories of family secrets unraveling and tearing people apart, but I had never considered that my own life might become one of those narratives. One night, after the dinner plates had been cleared and the remnants of our meal lingered in the air, I decided it was time to confront Michael again. I found him in his study, sitting at the desk cluttered with papers and half-finished projects. The glow from the desk lamp highlighted the lines of stress carved into his face. As I entered, he looked up, surprise flashing in his eyes. "We need to talk," I stated, my heart pounding with anticipation and fear. He sighed, the weight of the moment settling heavily between us. "About her," I added, letting the name hang in the air like an uninvited guest. His expression hardened, and I could see the struggle within him. "I didn't want to bring her into this," he replied, his voice a mixture of regret and defensiveness. "Not yet. Not when you weren't ready." "Ready for what? To learn that you've had another life, another person you've cared for? Do you even realize how that feels?" My emotions flared, each word coming out more forcefully than I intended. I wanted him to feel my pain, to understand the sad betrayal that had settled in my heart. "Sienna, please," he implored, his tone shifting to one of desperation. "I never meant to hurt you. This wasn't something I wanted to keep from you forever. I thought it would be easier. Easier for you, perhaps. What about me? My voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability I fought so hard to hide. I desperately deserve to know who she is, why she's in our lives. I, angry, need to understand why this is happening now. Michael glanced at the clock, a hint of guilt flickering in his eyes. You're right, you deserve the truth. I promise I'll explain everything, but not here. I need to speak to your mother first. His admission brought a sense of urgency. The thought of facing this new reality terrified me, yet a flicker of resolve ignited within. I had to know more, not just for myself, but for Isaac too. This would be a pivotal moment for our family, a chance to confront the past and, hopeful, reshape our future. As I stood there, breathless and shaken, I realized that whatever lay ahead, it would demand courage from all of us. It was time to stop hiding from the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The silence that settled in the room felt like a heavy blanket suffocating us, pressing down on my chest and stifling any hope for clarity. I looked at Michael, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he were bracing himself for a storm. "What do you mean by that?" I demanded, my voice barely concealing my frustration. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and I hoped he would take the bait. Laura shifted in her seat, her expression wavering between concern and determination. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, battling the instinct to protect Michael and the urge to ensure I understood the full picture. "Sienna," she interjected softly, "maybe it's not the right time for this discussion." But I could see the hurt in her eyes, the struggle between wanting to shield me from pain and knowing that I needed to confront the truth. I shook my head, refusing to back down. "I need to understand why you hid this from me," I angrily pressed, each word laced with anger. "You could have told me about her. You chose to keep it a secret." The accusation hung in the air, stinging like an open wound, and I held my breath, anticipating his response. Michael sighed deeply, his shoulders dropping as he leaned back in his chair, almost as if the weight of his secret had become too much for him to bear. "You're right," he finally admitted, his voice wavering. "I should have told you. I didn't want to upset you or make you think." He trailed off, glancing at Laura, who looked at him imploringly. "I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" I sarcastic echoed incredulously. "By lying?" Isaac, sensing the rising tension, fidgeted nervously in his seat, his eyes darting between us. I hated that he was caught in the middle of this storm. But I felt a fierce need to voice my anger. "How is this protecting me? You've shattered my trust, and now you want to justify it?" "I was afraid you wouldn't understand," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Elise is complicated. I thought if I waited until the time was right—" "The time for what?" I snapped, interrupting him. "You think there's a perfect moment to reveal that you have someone else in your life? I can't believe you thought keeping this from me was better than facing the truth." Laura placed a hand on my arm, her touch gentle but firm. "Sienna, listen to your father. Sometimes people make mistakes out of fear. He never wanted to hurt you." "That's exactly it. You all keep saying it's about not wanting to hurt me, but what about my feelings?" I felt a mix of sadness and fury bubbling inside me. "You don't get to make decisions about my life, my emotions, without including me." "Please, let me explain," Michael said, his eyes desperate, pleading with me to listen. "Elise, she's part of a life I didn't want to include you in, It's complicated because I thought I could handle it alone, that I could keep it separate from us. I was wrong, and I realize that now. Who is she then? Why is she so significant? I demanded, feeling an overwhelming need for answers. I wanted to know the truth, to piece together this puzzle that felt like it was tearing my family apart. She's someone from my past, someone I never intended to bring back into my life, he said, each word carefully chosen. We shared a connection that I thought was long gone, but it resurfaced in a way I didn't expect. I wasn't prepared for the feelings that came rushing back. What kind of connection? I pressed, desperate for clarity. It was before I met your mother, he said, and I felt a fearful shiver run down my spine. I thought I had moved on. I thought I had put it all behind me. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave, drowning me in a sea of emotions. You still have feelings for her? The words slipped out before I could stop them. I could hardly believe what I was hearing, and the ache in my chest deepened. No, he replied firmly, shaking his head. It's not like that. I care about Elise, but it's complicated. I love your mother, and I've always wanted our family to be whole. But life is messy, and I made a poor choice thinking I could separate these parts of myself. So you thought you could just keep her in the shadows while we all pretended everything was fine? I asked, incredulous. I know it sounds reckless, he admitted. His voice strained. But I thought I was protecting you and Isaac. I thought if you never met her, you'd never have to worry about her. Worry about her? You mean worry about the other woman in your life? I felt an angry, hot flush of anger rush to my cheeks. You've made this my problem now, Dad. Isaac finally spoke up, his voice trembling but brave. Why didn't you just tell us? I mean, it sounds really hard to keep a secret like that. I turned to look at my younger brother, whose innocence made me want to shield him from this reality even more. Exactly, Isaac. Why didn't he just come out with it? We could have worked through this together. Michael looked at me with a mixture of sorrow. I thought if I waited for the right time, it would ease the burden. I thought it would protect you both from the fallout. Protecting us by lying? I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. But I fought them back. This isn't how family should be. Secrets and lies are only going to hurt us more. Laura leaned forward, her voice breaking through the tension. We need to figure this out together as a family. Sienna, I know you're hurt, but we can find a way to address this without tearing ourselves apart. No more secrets, I said firmly, looking each of them in the eye. If we're going to survive this, we need to be honest with one another. In that moment, I felt a hope within me, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could navigate this mess together. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps this was the first step toward healing. I could feel the warmth of my family around me, fragile but present, and I knew that the road ahead would be rocky, but it was a road I was confident willing to walk if it meant reclaiming our bond. As the conversation paused, I glanced at Isaac, who was watching me with wide eyes, and I felt a surge of determination. I didn't want him to bear the burden of this family secret any longer. We'll face this together, right? I asked, reaching for his hand. Isaac nodded, and in that small gesture, I felt a hope of glimmer of the unity I longed for. I turned to my parents, my heart beating in rhythm with the fragile hope that we could mend what had been broken. But first, we needed to confront the truth, all of it, no matter how painful. If you have ever faced a similar family challenge, I would love to hear your story. Let's share our experiences and find strength in each other's journeys. Together, we can create a path toward understanding and healing.